안녕하세요. 강신우의 교회음악 강의를 맡아 진행하는 강신우입니다. 영국 소년성가대원의 일상 다큐멘타리 소개입니다. 나의 강의 가운데 영국 소년성가대원 코리스터에 대한 설명이 있어 왔습니다. 이들에 대한 많은 영상 가운데 내용이 좋은 이 다큐멘터리를 여러분에게 소개하려 합니다. 소개할 성가대는 윈체스터 대성전교회 성가대입니다. 이 도시는 이름에서와 같이 로마 시대에 건설된 도시로 그 역사가 깊습니다. 이 성가대는 지금 영국의 성가대 가운데 역사가 가장 오래되어 1000년에 가깝습니다. 한편 이 대성전교회 성가대는 영국 성가대 가운데 뛰어난 성가대 중 하나입니다. 이 도시의 윈체스터 칼리지는 명문 사립고등학교로 이름이 높습니다. 영국의 사립고등학교 중에서 칼리지라는 이름을 사용하는 학교들이 꽤 돼요. 그래서 우리는 대학으로 착각하는 경우들이 있기도 합니다. 이 동영상에서 소년 성가대원의 일상생활과 연습 과정 등을 볼 수 있습니다. 이 어린이들은 8세에 시작하여 13세 정도의 변성이 오면 마치게 됩니다. 이들 어린이는 30명 정도이며 그 가운데 16명에서 18명이 예배에서 남성 성악가들과 함께 노래합니다. 남성 성가대원은 남성 알토인 카운터 테너 4명, 테너 4명, 베이스 4명이 일반적입니다. 이들 남성 성가대원은 과거에는 평신도 성직자로 우대되었고 교회의 신사로 불려왔습니다. 이들은 교회 성가대에서 노래도 하고 학교나 대학에서 성악을 가르치는 등 독창자로 활동하는 프리랜서 음악가들이기도 합니다. 이 다큐멘터리는 1989년 제작된 것으로 그때의 음악 지도자는 데이빗 힐이었습니다. 그는 캠브리지의 세인트 존스 칼리지에서 조지 게스트 지휘자 지도 아래 얼간 스칼라를 거쳐 런던에 있는 카톨릭 교회인 웨스트민스터 대성당 음악 지도자로 일하였습니다. 뒤에 윈체스터 대성전교회에 이어 모교인 세인트 존스 칼리지 성가대 음악 지도자로 일하였습니다. 지금은 미국 예일 대학의 합창 교수 및 지휘자입니다. 데이비드 힐은 이 시대의 뛰어난 합창 지휘자 가운데 한 사람입니다. 내가 본 영국교회 소년성가대 다큐멘터리 가운데 내용이 충실하고 언어에 대한 큰 부담 없이 인내심을 가지고 보면 이해가 가능하여 추천하는 동영상입니다. 영상 도중에 끊임없는 설명이 있으나 이에 귀 기울이지 말고 영상에만 집중하면 내용을 이해하는 데 도움이 됩니다. 끝나는 때 남성 성가대원들이 펍에 모여 이야기를 마치며 노래하는데 이 또한 인상적입니다. 이 동영상의 시간도 25분으로 길지는 않습니다. 오늘도 이 로드가 굉장히 말썽부리네요. 조금 기다려 주시기 바랍니다.
There is a competitive voice trial where boys come from all over the country and compete, and if they're judged musically competent and there's a vacancy, they come into the Pilgrim School and the Dean and Chapter pay half their fees, which is round about £3,000 a year, give or take 100 or two. So that is the way it is done. It is still quite expensive for parents. They've still got to find another £3,000. And to that extent, I think, and this worries one slightly, it does restrict the intake to families that can afford some money anyway for education. But that is the way it works, and it's a good bargain for the cathedral. It's a marvellous education for a boy. This music is of vital importance. It's one of the few things I'd go to the stake for. A vast building of this sort and such a lovely building does require the kind of music that only a choir of this sort can do. Only a choir of this quality can actually lift the music to the heights and the worship to the heights where it needs to be. It's expensive, of course, nearly £120,000 a year it costs, but it's interesting. We've had financial problems lately, and we've discussed this widely with a great many people, both in and out of Winchester, and not one person has said, you ought to save on the music, and I think there is a general feeling about that.
Get up, everybody. Come on up, go. Socks and pants to collect and plant to water. They get up about 7:10 in the morning. Then after breakfast, they have an hour's practice with the organist. Then ordinary lessons, like all the other boys. And they practice their instruments as well. Lunch, a couple of times a week. They have another practice after lunch. Games. Then afternoon lessons, practice for evensong and evensong. They have their tea and do their prep, and then they go to bed. So they do everything an ordinary commoner boarder does, plus their choral duties.
Stephen, have you arrived at that geography test? Oh, no. Oh, what's it on?
If somebody has a slight cold, and they want to play in a match, but I know there's a concert the next day, then I have to make a decision as to whether where the priorities lie.
I think they certainly regard it as a privilege to be here, or at least if they don't now, that later on they will regard it to have been a privilege to have been here, because it is a remarkable thing to belong to a corporate body of this sort. And I do marvel, I must say, that boys aged 8 to 13, children really, are there performing at a high professional level.
I am director of music at Winchester Cathedral, which means I'm in charge of all the music which takes place here. The boys rehearse for approximately 8.5 hours a week. Most of this takes place very early in the morning. They then go to school, and I don't see them until 5 o'clock in the evening when we rehearse again.
At 8:10, I call choir, and everyone goes up for choir practice, and that goes on till 9:15. I tell all the other choristers what to do, and make sure they get to practices on time, and in the morning practice, early in the morning, I have to warm them up before Mr. Hill arrives.
Right, good morning. Now, Ben. Right, here we go. Now, this morning, we start with the exercise. The one you were seeing. 1, 2. Right on the bottom note. 1, 2. It's not good to sing early in the morning without some form of exercise. And some professional singers refuse anyway to sing early in the morning, even with exercise. The boys are quite adaptable to this, and as long as they warm themselves up for 5 minutes, they're able to do most things quite well. Then we have to consider the day's music, the music we are going to be performing on that particular day. And I hope on any given day that they don't take more than 20 or 25 minutes putting that together. Otherwise we're in a little bit of trouble in terms of looking ahead to other things that are coming up. Breathe. Shape it. It is very important to maintain a high level of discipline at the same time as having a friendly working relationship with the choristers. So we have an understanding that boys, for instance, will not interrupt a choir practice, will not suddenly decide to leave or anything like that. We treat it really as a classroom. And if they make a mistake as they're singing, they put their hands up. It's very important, so we know how many are making mistakes at any given time. We don't have to guess as the choir master. Stop. George.
If they have to ask a question about something, again, they put their hand up. And I think that the boys understand that to work in a team such as ours, this kind of discipline needs to be maintained, particularly when they're going to be producing professional standards at the end of their working day.
And. Now a bit more of the air. 1, 2. That's it. Now so I'm trying to develop the sound. Two T's. I light to light. I light to lighten. Put them in at the very last moment. The one on beginning on a D. I light. 1, 2. It is important to spend the time very efficiently, as the boys have to learn different music for every single day. Of course, we rotate music, and certain pieces appear more than others, but on the whole, they have to adapt themselves to different pieces, and that is why we need to have total efficiency in practice and very high level of discipline.
If I come out of my house in the morning in a bad mood, as often I do, and I hear the boys singing in their practice room, there's no way I can be in a bad mood when I get to my desk, and that must be good. So it means that I'm enthusiastic, and I'm passing on that enthusiasm to my staff and to the boys I meet around the school. It must be very challenging for a small boy to come to a situation like this where he's expected to keep up his work and to contribute quite a bit around the school and do this enormous extra dimension to his life, to get involved in something as exciting but as demanding as cathedral music inevitably is. On the whole, they cope splendidly, provided they have the full support of their parents, which usually they do, thank goodness. And David Hill is the most marvellous coach for them on the singing side, and they rapidly get involved with the choir, and that actually helps them settle in the school much more quickly, because they feel they're part of something important and exciting straight away. Good. The boy knows where his loyalty lies each moment of the day, whether it's to the master who wants him for a cricket net, or someone else who wants him for an extra French lesson, or the fact the organist wants him for an extra rehearsal. The day has to be very carefully planned, so the boy knows exactly where his responsibilities lie. And he knows perfectly well, if he's playing in a cricket match on a Saturday afternoon and he's 99 not out at 4:45, he walks off the pitch because he knows that's the deal. At 4:45 he's wanted for a choir practice, and whatever the state of play, he goes.
I found it quite hard settling. I didn't like boarding very much. Some don't mind boarding, but some get upset when they first come. In the morning practice, usually we sing a lot better because we're refreshed, because we just woken up. And then in the evening we just had a hard day and try and sing it again. I can't concentrate sometimes because, I'm thinking about work and things like that. In my second year here, I didn't do too well academically, and I found it quite hard to get back and do well. But apart from that, it's been alright. I'm quite proud of being head chorister.
During the day he'd have a music lesson perhaps, and some music practice organised. So he'd do about 2.5 hours of music a day, in addition to what the rest of us do in the way of work.
Well done. See, it's the sort of piece that if you really can look at your bow and really look at your fingers, you're going to do it brilliantly. And, then just the last bit itself. Even lighter finger. With the harmonic, if you can tilt your hand slightly.
I think choir schools have taken quite a lot of knocking in recent years for the way they do things and for the way they pressurise boys. My own son might have been a victim of this knocking, if you like, but he was head chorister in his own prep school. I actually think had a very nice voice. We didn't bother to explore the possibility of his becoming a cathedral chorister because I had this outdated vision of choir schools as being somewhere fussy and dusty where rather strange old men lived in rather narrow surroundings, and so I didn't think of sending my own son here. I just wish he'd had his time over again and could have gone to a place like this, because I know that the boys who are at this school as choristers have an experience which is so enriching that when they leave here at 13, they are made for life. They have acquired a discipline and a commitment to something very worthwhile which will see them forever. They've learnt to discipline themselves, they've learnt to use time. Gosh, I wish I'd been a chorister. I'd have learnt to use my time. If you're a chorister, you have just little free time. It's so precious, and you do use it very, very sensibly. That is very noticeable in the school. But the commoners are much more casual about how they spend their free time. The choristers cherish it and make use of every minute of every day, and that's a very valuable lesson to learn in life, as well as learning to be disciplined to the requirements of a choir, to be punctual. Again, I wish I'd been a chorister from that point of view. I'm always late for things. And just feeling that you've done something supremely well. You've developed a talent given you for the enjoyment of others. And what greater thing can there be in life to do than that? And you've learnt all that by the time you're 13. And you've probably got a music scholarship to your public school. And you've developed your own talent to an amazingly high standard. And you've been part of something as great as the English choral heritage. we are constantly being approached by people who want their sons to be tested, and they either come and see David Hill privately or they come to the regular voice trials which we have.
I look for various qualities at a chorister trial. Firstly, a boy who is able to respond to ideas and who is doing well at school. Obviously, a boy who has a good, clear voice. And thirdly, good musical ears. Good, very nice, thank you very much. Now, James, I want you to sing a few tests, which I'm going to play to you. Firstly, some single notes, which I want you to sing as soon as you've heard them. So here we are. I like to see a little sparkle in their eyes, and some of the best choristers are perhaps some of the naughtiest. Good. And now I'm going to play a chord with 3 notes in it, and I want you to sing what you hear. Here it is. That's fine. Were they all correct, do you think?
Yes.
It is a factor that there might be some reluctance on the part of parents to send them away to board as young as 8. There is sadly less Christian commitment in some families, so they don't quite see the same purpose of a boy standing in the cathedral singing anthems in Latin every day of the week. There are fewer boys singing in parish choirs nowadays, far more girls we see in the parish church. And the present Dean of Winchester doesn't foresee girl sopranos in the cathedral choir here, so we are even more dependent on people encouraging boys to come forward from their primary schools or homes where their parents know they have a musical child on their hands.
Play it twice, and then you clap it back. Here we are. Once a boy has been accepted as a chorister, he attends the Pilgrims' School, which has, I think, 175 or so boys. So the choristers make up only a proportion of the number in the school. We come to 22. We like to assure anyone who bring their sons here that they will have a marvellous time. They will be worked very hard, but that's part of it. But they will thoroughly enjoy themselves. It is a superb environment for young boys to develop their talents. Historically, many of the choirs have had extraordinarily checkered pasts. The schools, when the boys were educated in the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries, were very primitive. The boys were expected to do too much. They had very little education. Perhaps 1 hour a day was all they received. And they were expected to turn out for many services, many more than we expect choristers now. To think once upon a time that in the 18th century, the men who sung at Westminster Abbey were the same ones who sung at St Paul's and the Chapel Royal, and they left after the anthem, before the sermon, in order to get to the next place. And to think that Samuel Sebastian Wesley, even in the 19th century, when things, as I say, were in terrible disarray, he was composing pieces for choristers, a few choristers at that, no altos, no tenors, and 1 bass for Easter Day, and the bass also had a job as the Dean's butler. We're very lucky in the 20th century that things have come on as they have. We are performing music here, which is magnificent in that it has existed for hundreds of years, and people forget to realise how much has been composed for the Anglican Church, and that people who come from abroad to this country are always amazed by what they hear. We sing an anthem at each service, and the anthem is peculiarly Anglican. It has been in existence, of course, since the Reformation, and you can imagine that hundreds of anthems have been composed. We only sing a fraction of these, really, and it is an important element of what we do. boys here are very aware of the privilege they enjoy, and indeed we are lucky to have them here doing it for this particular place, because the cathedral would be really desolate in many ways without choristers singing each day in it. The boys understand that, I think, but like anything in life, I suspect one doesn't really appreciate it fully until after the event. The gentlemen of the choir, who make up the bass, tenor and alto parts, are singers who have trained at college or university, and they are described as lay clerks. And once upon a time, I think a lay clerk would have been attached to a minor canon position, so some of them may have been in holy orders. This is not the case these days, when the lay clerks, by and large, teach. Some have professional musical careers. We have a tenor who spends his whole time pursuing that, for instance. So a varied mixture of careers, but they're all very, very intelligent musicians and people.
This is a rehearsal.
Right.
This is a rehearsal.
Right.
Please.
Right, books down, everybody. Everyone put your shirts to the wash? Yes. Right. Lie down then. Right. Good night. Sleep well.